there's ever a senator who, in fact, reflected his state, it was Robert C. Byrd. The fact of the matter is, the pick of the banjo, the sweet sound of the fiddle, ramp dinners in the spring, country fairs in the summer, the beauty of the laurels in the mountains, the rush of the rapids through the valleys. These things not only describe West Virginia, but from an outsider's point of view, who's been here many times at the invitation of Jennings Randolph and Robert C. Byrd, it seems to me they define a way of life. It's more than just a state. He was fiercely devoted, as you've all heard, to his principles. Even once he became power, he always spoke truth to power, standing up for the people he proudly was part of. And you've heard it many times a day, but it bears repeating it again in defense of the Constitution he revered. I always wear a flag pin, but I was afraid he'd be looking down today, because every time I'd wear the flag pin on the floor, he would grab me, take my pin, and put on a Constitution pin. That's the pin I'm wearing. So, boss, I'm wearing the pin.
Today faces a controversy. 3 weeks ago, at a debate at the Iowa State Fair, he used phrases identical to those delivered by British Labour Party leader Neil Kinnock.
Biden seemed to be claiming Kinnock's vision and life as his own.
Why is it that my wife is sitting out there in the audience, is the first in her family to ever go to college?
Why is Gladys the first woman in her family, in 1,000 generations, to be able to get to university?
My ancestors who worked in the coal mines in northeast Pennsylvania don't come up after 12 hours and play football.
8 hours underground, and then come up and play football.
It's because they didn't have a platform upon which to stand.
There was no platform upon which they could stand.
The notion that every thought or notion or idea you'd have to go back and find and attribute to someone, I think is, quite frankly, ludicrous.
The problem here is that Senator Biden told his audience he'd just been thinking about these things, and he failed to give any credit at all to his famous British speechwriter.
You know, I was thinking on the way over here. Now, that's a little too much, because, as you point out, what's behind the words? What's there? And a lot of people that rap on Biden has always been that it's just a surface.
I should have said, to paraphrase Neil Kinnock, it's the only time I didn't, and all the times I've ever used it.
But CBS News found a tape of a second instance.
It reappeared in the New York Times with a new charge, that Biden had appropriated a famous litany from the late Robert Kennedy about what the gross national product cannot measure.
It cannot measure the health of our children,
The health of our children,
the quality of our education,
the quality of their education,
the joy of their play,
or the joy of their play.
Biden gave Kennedy no credit. He has also quoted or paraphrased John Kennedy, Hubert Humphrey, and British Labour Party leader Neil Kinnock, all without credit.
Joseph Biden admitted today that he committed plagiarism when he was in law school. He said it was a mistake, but that it was unintentional.
He quoted 5 pages of someone else's work without proper citation.
I've done some dumb things, and I'll do dumb things again.
He was given an F.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I've been dumb.
To the political community in Washington, it all seems of a piece. Plagiarism at law school, plagiarism on the stump.
The great communicator. Strike that. The great imitator.
You don't steal verbatim, or when you do, as he did 99% of the time, you give credit.
Biden's critics say he sells himself as a man whose words and visions can inspire a new generation in politics. But if the thoughts, phrases, and visions really belong to others, it's a form of false advertising.
Is it a wise idea, though, to take something that personal, anyway, from another politician and try and appropriate it to your own campaign?
I think it was a stupid thing to appropriate material that was really very personal, that was someone else's.
Most people didn't know who he was, you know, Joe Biden, and now they're going to say, oh, yeah, he's the guy who plagiarized.
That's a lot of people.
Politically, that's devastating. These clips are devastating. He looks like a Joe Biden wind-up doll with somebody else's words coming out.
If they're going to do things that are stupid as well as immoral, then they're probably too dumb to have the job of president.
Voters are going to have to decide whether he was dishonest or dumb.
Senator Joseph Biden may have more explaining to do.
The new questions stem from taped remarks of Biden during an April campaign appearance in New Hampshire.
I went to law school on a full academic scholarship, the only one in my class to have a full academic scholarship. Went back to law school and, in fact, ended up in the top half of my class. I was the outstanding student in the political science department at the end of my year. I graduated with 3 degrees from undergraduate school and 165 credits, only needed 123 credits.
Biden now concedes he did not graduate in the top half of his law school class, that he does not have 3 degrees from college, and that he was not named outstanding political science student in college.
Newsweek says Biden actually went to school on a half scholarship, ended up near the bottom of his class, and won only 1 degree, not 3.
Joe Biden ranked 76th in a class of 85 at the University of Syracuse Law School. I mean, this guy comes off this whole thing as a flyweight.
Now Biden says Newsweek is right. His memory had failed him.
And I'd be delighted to sit down and compare my IQ to yours if you'd like, Frank.
Joe Biden was victimized by the truth.
Bye-bye Biden. He may not know it yet, but I think this is going to be very difficult for him to recover.
Is Joe Biden dead meat, yes or no?
I think so.
Bob?
Terminal condition.
Terminal. Eleanor?
Yes, unless he comes in third in Iowa.
Morton?
Dying.
I say dead. We'll be right back.
Change the tone over the last few days, as Trump has, doesn't change the facts of the last 4 years. Donald Trump faces a real test, and he's failed it. The basic threshold of being president. The duty to care for the entire country, not just his re-election prospects. He's shown that he can't beat the pandemic and keep you safe. He can't turn the economy around and get America back to work. And he is horrifyingly and not surprisingly intentionally stoking the flames of division and racism in this country.
Important. I wish we taught more in our schools about the Islamic faith. I wish we talked about all the great confessional faiths. It's one of the great confessional faiths. And what people don't realize is, one of my avocation is theology, don't realize is that we all come from the same root here in terms of our fundamental basic beliefs. And I just want to thank you for giving me the opportunity, for being engaged, for committing to action this November. You're doing what's been that's never been done before. You're registering and turning out 1 million Muslim voters this November. It matters. Your voice is your vote. Your vote is your voice. Muslim Americans' voices matter to our communities, to our country, but we all know that your voice hasn't always gotten recognized or represented, and or the recognition it deserves. And that's your right. We have to find a way to keep our economy running as we bring the number of cases down. The president wants us to believe there's a choice between the economy and public health. Amazingly, he still hasn't grasped the most basic fact of this crisis. To fix the economy, we have to get control over the virus. Say it again, to fix the economy, we have to get control over the virus. He's like a child who can't believe this has happened to him. All his whining and self-pity. Well, this pandemic didn't happen to him. It happened to all of us. And his job isn't to whine about it. His job is to do something about it, to lead. If I have the honor of being president, I promise you I will lead. I will do everything I can to take responsibility and ease this burden on you and your families. I'll put your family first. That will begin with a dramatic expansion of health coverage and bold steps to lower health care costs.
Quick, some have speculated,
You're a lying dog,
that you are subject to some degree of cognitive decline. I'm 65. I don't have word recollection that I used to have. I forget my train of thought from time to time. You got 12 years on me, sir. Have you been tested for some degree of cognitive decline?
Guys, I really do have to go. I apologize. I'm going to get in real trouble. I'm probably already in trouble, but thank you. Go ahead. What's the last? I'm sorry.
Good to see you out and about, Mr. Vice President. I'm a little confused about the delineation about the destruction of monuments. You talk about the fathers of this country, Washington, Jefferson, is worthy of preservation. Are Confederate monuments worthy of preservation? Should they be torn down in the manner that they are being torn down without the vote of local elected officials?
Well, I think it's very different. I think it's better if they're taken down like they took the Confederate flag off the Mississippi flag. That's the better way of doing it. But I can understand the anger and anguish that people feel by having, for years and years, been under the statue of Robert E. Lee, who, if you're an African American. So it's a difference. It's always better to do it peacefully, but there's a distinction between, and those monuments, and I shift responsibility, and I think the elected officials where those statues are have a responsibility to move. Put them in museums, get them down. But don't expect, if you have sitting in front of you after all these years and we finally are going through another phase of maybe responding to the systemic racism in America and what we've seen. Be surprised if someone pulls down the statue of Jefferson Davis. It's better that they do not, but it's fundamentally different than pulling down the statue or going into the Lincoln Memorial and trying to pull, not Lincoln Memorial. That's a bad example. The Jefferson Memorial and grabbing Jefferson off his chair. So.
Two quickies. Will you commit to 3 debates?
Oh, yes.
3?
3, yeah. I committed to following the debate, the national debate group that sets up these debates, who they pick as the moderators, 3 of them. It's been this way for a long time. The first one is a one-on-one debate with a moderator. The next one is a town meeting setting. And the third one is a normal debate again. I commit to those. I'm looking forward to it.
Last question, real quick. Some have speculated,
You're a lying dog.
Some degree of cognitive decline. I'm 65. I don't have word recollection that I used to have. I forget my train of thought from time to time. You got 12 years on me, sir. Have you been tested for some degree of cognitive decline?
I've been tested, and I'm constantly tested. Look, all I got to do is watch me, and I can hardly wait to compare my cognitive capability to the cognitive capability of the man I'm running against. I'm going to try to say this politely, is to lower the rhetoric based on division. Stop appealing to the less healthy side of society. Instead of a car goes by yelling white supremacy and the president tweets it out. Don't do things like that. Bring the country together. We're giving a portion of the population who has responded to the sort of race baiting the president has engaged in, a sort of free the Wilmington, the Delaware State News. Delaware News Journal, I should say. That's my hometown team. I better call on them. How are you? Where's the... in the 2020 census, which is now 2 censuses ago, soon to be, the large... Sick. What's with this guy?
Steve, that's our time.
Okay. Thanks so much to Mr. Vice President as well.
Thank you. I hope I can see you again. We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by you know the thing.
Jesus Christ, Joe. It's all men are created equal. How could you forget that? The thing? The thingamajigger. The thingamajigger. Joe, you and your son is living proof that all men are not created equal. How could you forget the Declaration of Independence? Do you even know why the Declaration of Independence was written? That's the premise. All men are created equal, and you forget that?
Yeah, you ain't got to memorize the entire thing. You just got to memorize the most important part. All men are created equal. But we all know that's bullshit now.
Joe, you guys, the Democrats, y'all claim that you guys are the party of diversity. This should be your punchline every night.
Every night.
I mean, man, Joe, you like the Muhammad Ali of politicians, man. You should have retired a long time ago. Somebody throw in the towel.
Like in Rocky.
Yeah. Throw in the towel. Somebody throw in the damn towel. Throw in the towel.
Hey, man, I would tell you, Joe, to use a teleprompter, but you'd probably just forget it at home, man.
Or forget it that it's even on. Joe, how many times have you locked your keys in the car? How many times have you lost your wallet, Joe?
I'm thinking.
I bet you Joe is the type of person that will go in the kitchen and put a pot of hot noodles on and forget about it. Come back, the whole house done burnt down. What's that beeping? I smell something burning. Hey, Joe, I don't think you're equipped to be president, man.
Yeah.
I'm serious, man. You should step aside. I mean, half the time when you open your mouth, I'm thinking you're actually trying to help Trump win.
Yeah. That's what it seems like to me.
I know why you're running for president, Joe. Your son needs a job again, right? He can't pay his child support. You and your son is the poster child that all men are not created equal. You two guys are scumbags. Hey, Joe, next time you do a public speaking event, do me a favor. Don't do cocaine with your son. That's what he's doing. Yeah, he's got to be doing something.
Look, hey, Joe, I still like you better than Bernie.
Yeah.
That's not saying much. He's a communist.
Joe, man, I can't wait till this showdown with Trump during the debate.
Yeah, you're going to get the nomination. They can't give it to Bernie.
They can't give it to a damn communist.
Yeah.
They got to give it to you, Sleepy Joe.
Because he would destroy the Democrat Party.
He would, man. You'd be actually doing everybody on the right a favor.
Yeah. But that debate with Trump, that's going to be a pure entertainment. I got my popcorn ready.
Got my beer ready. Got my large pepperoni pizza. All that's going to be ready.
Yeah, because Trump is going to mop the floor with you, tough guy. Trump 2020. Yeah.
Hey, we got some new shows coming.
Donald Trump is your president, if you like it or not. Keep the energy you had with Barack. Cause you know this Trump train don't stop. Tell Beto to please come try to take my Glock. You wanna impeach him? I guess that's what you do when you can't beat him. That need to dead that. And I'm coming through your hood in my red hat.
Now, he's blaming everything on China. He's blaming everything on the Chinese. He's blaming everything, and people don't make a distinction, as you well know, from a South Korean and someone from Beijing. They make no distinction. It's Asia. That's the way, and he's just using it as a wedge.
So Joe Biden says that Trump is wrong to hold China accountable for coronavirus because the average American can't tell the difference between a Chinese and a South Korean.
Make no distinction, it's Asia.
Now, this is one of those Biden-esque formulations that needs a little bit of dissection. Now, Biden is sort of the master of the non sequitur. A non sequitur is something that doesn't follow from the premise. So if I were to say something like, it's really hot outside, and Biden comes back with, make sure you wear a green shirt, that's a non sequitur. It has nothing to do with what I just said. So let's begin with this notion of the Korean and the Chinese. Now, having grown up on the Asian continent, I know that these are ethnically distinct, but they're quite similar. I'm not surprised one bit that the ordinary American can't tell the difference. I doubt the Chinese could tell the difference between, let's say, a Mexican and a Salvadoran. I doubt. So when you're looking at people who belong to the same racial group, and there are minor differences between them, people on the outside who are not culturally familiar with both groups can't tell. But so what? What does this actually even prove? I don't even know if Biden could tell the difference between a Chinese and an Afghan. Biden lives in his own world, which is a little bit of the twilight zone.
In Delaware, the largest growth in population is Indian Americans moving from India. You cannot go to a 7-Eleven or a Dunkin' Donuts unless you have a slight Indian accent. I'm not joking. Oh, gigantic.
Now, back to Trump. When Trump is talking about China being responsible for coronavirus, I don't think he means that the virus is ethnically Chinese. The virus doesn't have Chinese eyes. What he means is that the virus came from China. It was Chinese negligence that allowed the virus to get out of the lab, get out of the meat market. They knew about it. They didn't tell anyone else about it. That's why we have to deal with it. And moreover, Trump is saying that because I blocked travel from China, that made a problem that could have been far worse into less of a problem. So Biden needs to refute that, and of course he can't. And so he responds with his Biden-esque type of logic that is no logic at all.
I had a nurse nurses at Walter Reed Hospital who would bend down and whisper in my ear. Wow. And go home and get me pillows. They would make sure they'd actually, probably nothing ever taught in, you can't do it in the COVID time, but they'd actually breathe in my nostrils to make me move, to get me moving.
This nation needs steady, empathetic leadership. Joe Biden.
Good afternoon, everyone. As Lily already indicated, I'm Joe Biden's husband, Joe Biden. I get every child and I know you all know this, but all the great universities over the last 10 years have come up with some really startling new insights. And Corn Pop was a bad dude. And he ran a bunch of bad boys. And I did. And back in those days, to show how things have changed, one of the things you had to use, if you used pomade in your hair, you had to wear a bathing cap. And so he was up on the board, wouldn't listen to me. I said, hey, Esther, you, off the board, or I'll come up and drag you off. Well, he came off, and he said, I'll meet you outside. My car, these were all public housing behind it. My car, there was a gate out here. I parked my car outside the gate. And he said, I'll be waiting for you. He was waiting for 3 guys in straight razors. Not a joke. There was a guy named Bill Wright, Mouse, the only white guy, and he did all the pools.
Vice President, I think you know how much it means to me to have you swear me in today, and I thank you. And for me, this is the highest honor, to be the 25th Secretary of Defense. I'm grateful to the President and the Vice President for your trust and confidence, and to the U.S. Senate as well for their trust and confidence. I've got a lot of thanks to give out here.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
I'm supposed to kiss
Who
you.
is it? Why don't you kiss me? Thank you.
It's over there, Mary Lynn.
And girls, be patient. Fathers are hard to raise. Just be patient. That's my daughter told me. And by the way, you know, I sit on the stand, and it get hot. I got hairy legs that turn turn blonde in the sun. And the kids used to come up and reach in the pool and rub my leg down so it was straight, and then watch the hair come back up again. They'd look at it. So I learned about roaches. I learned about kids jumping on my lap. And I've loved kids jumping on my lap.
Biden's campaign team realized that Donald Trump was on TV every day and that Donald Trump was handling this coronavirus crisis like a real leader and that everybody was being reminded on a daily basis that Donald Trump is our president and he's pretty gosh darn good at it. And the Joe Biden people were like, man, we really don't like to put Joe Biden in front of the camera because we never know what he's going to do or say, but we probably need to put him in front of the camera. So they put together a Facebook Live so that, get this, Joe Biden could discuss his thoughts and feelings about the coronavirus crisis and criticize the president who's actually, you know, doing stuff about it. Here's how it began.
I hope you and your family are doing well in these difficult and anxious times. Confusing times.
I kind of feel like all times are confusing for Joe Biden, don't you?
Like all families, the Biden family is adjusting to new ways.
That's correct. For example, his son can't go out and pretend to know something about the stock market or about energy and get millions of dollars from places like China or the Ukraine. I mean, his son can't go anywhere. It's tough to be corrupt with foreign countries when you can't travel to foreign countries. So keep the Bidens in your prayers.
The president says no one saw this coming. Well, that's just not accurate. Our intelligence officials were warning of coronavirus threat in January. Just based on public information that I had, I warned the threat was getting worse way back on January the 27th.
Okay, so back on January 27th, Joe Biden said he had all this political knowledge and he had all this insight and intelligence that told him this was going to be a problem. But you know what? There were so many opportunities for him to come forward at rallies during the debates and talk about the coronavirus. But you know why he didn't do it? Because he was too busy discussing open borders and pollution and free health care for all. That's what the Democrats were focused on. They didn't care about the coronavirus back on January 27th. In fact, you know what they were doing on January 27th? Do you know why the Senate couldn't focus its efforts on making sure that the president was putting together a plan to protect us from the impending pandemic of the coronavirus? Do you know why they couldn't do that? Because all 100 of those senators were locked in a room for 2 weeks, for 12 hours a day, listening to Adam Schiff and Jerry Nadler and Val Demings and all these other morons try to impeach the president of the United States for crimes that weren't crimes. They locked the entire Senate, the entire governing body, in a room to attack the president. The president was tied up, the Senate was tied up, congressional leaders were tied up, and the media was tied up. And as a result, on January 27th, when Joe Biden supposedly got this intel, the only story that was going on was the Senate trial of Donald Trump, a trial that Donald Trump didn't start. The Democrats did. Then he started laying out his plan.
We need to activate the reserve corps of doctors and nurses and beef up the number of responders dealing with these crush of cases.
The crush of cases. You got to beef up the first responders. Listen to what part 2 of his plan is.
And in addition to that, we have to make sure that we are in a position that we are. Well, let me go to the second thing.
Yeah, he probably just, he's actually waving. You can see his hand in the corner of the screen. He's waving at his aide because he has no idea what he's supposed to be saying. He has no idea where he doesn't actually have a plan. He has somebody who wrote something on a screen that he's trying to read, and he lost his place. And now he's trying to desperately find it before people realize that he doesn't know what he's talking about and he doesn't have a plan.
Ordinary, hardworking Americans have never, ever, 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 ever let their country down. So we need to get moving, move faster. This is the United States of America. There's not a single thing we cannot do if we do it together.
Except pronounce the name of the country properly.
This is the United States of America.
The United States America. I'm Joe Biden. I'd like to be your president. God bless the United States America.
Let's head to the US again now, and once more the pandemic is shaping the presidential contest. Donald Trump is keeping on with his new stoic and realistic leadership style on dealing with the crisis. This time he's abandoned the Republican convention, which was going to anoint him as the candidate with plenty of hoopla and fanfare next month in the crucial swing state of Florida. Florida, where Trump has his beachside mansion as it happens, is doing it tough with coronavirus at the moment.
The timing for this event is not right. It's just not right with what's happened recently, the flare-up in Florida. To have a big convention, it's not the right time. There's nothing more important in our country than keeping our people safe. I just felt it was wrong, Steve, to have people going to what turned out to be a hotspot.
So that's a wise move from Trump, but it is a blow to his campaign. He needs momentum, and that event would have been a chance for him to build some. Let's have a look at some of Joe Biden's campaigning now. And as we keep saying, he is woolly-minded, forgetful, plain vague at times, and therefore he doesn't do press conferences or many off-the-cuff events. His latest manufactured release, Biden has conducted a staged and strange conversation with former President Barack Obama, wisely leaving Obama to do most of the speaking.
Two ways in which presidents motivate people. By doing something really ignobling, important, and people go, oh, or to do something really bad. This guy has generated a sense out there that people are waking up to, that he ran by deliberately dividing people from the moment he came down that escalator. And I think people are now going, I don't want my kid growing up that way.
You know what it's like, as much as anybody, to be in the White House during a crisis. You know what it's like to have to get laws passed through Congress. You know what it's like to deal with foreign leaders. You know what it's like and how lonely it can be to make tough decisions where not every decision is going to be perfect, but you got to make them and to take responsibility for it. I've seen you with families that have gone through tragedies. And the thing I've got confidence in, Joe, is your heart and your character and the fact that you are going to be able to reassemble the kind of government that cares about people and brings people together.
Barack Obama trying to explain to us why Joe Biden can do the job. That whole exchange reminded me of the classic Peter Sellers film, Being There. Joe Biden strikes me as the Chauncey Gardner of American politics. And it's so hard to see him being there.
Progressive president since FDR.
Surplus military equipment for law enforcement. They don't need that. The last thing you need is an up-armored Humvee coming into a neighborhood. It's like the military invading. They don't know anybody. They become the enemy. They're supposed to be protecting these people. So my generic point is that...
Can we agree that we can redirect some of the funding?
Yes, absolutely.
People say, well, Joe, how are you going to do all this? Well, guess what? First thing I do is going to repeal this Trump tax cut. Oh, not a joke.
I'm supporting NAFTA because I think it's a positive thing to do.
Joe Biden was a champion of China's entry into the World Trade Organization, which has since caused the loss of 60,000 American factories.
Raise your hand if your government plan would provide coverage for undocumented immigrants.
Vice President Biden, I'd like to ask you, 3 consecutive American presidents have enjoyed stints of explosive economic growth due to a boom in oil and natural gas production. As president, would you be willing to sacrifice some of that growth, even knowing potentially that it could displace thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of blue-collar workers in the interest of transitioning to that greener economy?
The answer is yes.
This is the worst economic recovery America has ever had.
If I'm president, Betsy DeVos's whole notion from charter schools to this are gone.
Joe Biden proudly said bingo when asked if a Biden administration would mean they're gonna come for my guns.
Abortion is an essential health care service.
Here's another reason why you shouldn't vote for Jim Crow Joe. Why? He said if we don't vote for him, we ain't black. Last time we checked, we black. That's right.
No new fracking.
Joe Biden supports open borders, which would increase crime and make our communities less safe.
Should undocumented immigrants arrested by local police be turned over to immigration officials?
No.
Under Joe Biden, American citizens would be forced to pay for free community college and health care for illegal aliens.
The Biden economy failed to bring back American manufacturing jobs, losing 192,000 manufacturing jobs on his watch.
But I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black.
Joe Biden called President Trump's life-saving travel restrictions at the beginning of coronavirus irrational and hysterical xenophobia.
You're going to take care of the gun problem with me. You're going to be the one that leads this effort.
Joe Biden, the guy hides in his basement so we can avoid questions about being a puppet for the far left.
My proposals on education, climate change, healthcare are as radical and change-driven enough as anybody else's plan.
Joe Biden's tax plan would eliminate hundreds of thousands of jobs and gut our economy.
Joe Biden oversaw the slowest economic recovery since the Great Depression.
No, you haven't. You're a dog-faced pony soldier. You said you were.
Joe Biden voted for the war in Iraq that cost thousands of American lives and trillions of dollars.
Yes, and by the way, in prison, the determination should be that your sexual identity is defined by what you say it is, not what, in fact, the prison says it is.
The Obama-Biden administration imposed almost $1 trillion in job-killing regulations.
China is not our enemy. China is going to eat our lunch? Come on, man.
Joe Biden has parroted the Communist Chinese government's talking points to undermine the coronavirus response.
No one's going to build another coal burning. We've got to shut the ones down we have. But no one is going to build a new one.
Joe Biden wants to eliminate American energy independence.
Number one, no more subsidies for fossil fuel industry. No more drilling on federal lands. No more drilling, including offshore. No ability for the oil industry to continue to drill, period. Ends.
We need to spend a whole lot of money to deal with global warming. The idea that we're going to be able to go out there and not do anything and not spend over $1 trillion over the next 10 to 15 years to deal with this is just simply wrong.
Here's why you shouldn't vote for Joe Biden. Why? Because he's been in government for over 47 years and he hadn't done anything for the betterment of America.
That's right.
Joe Biden would ruin our energy independence, cost 10 million Americans their jobs, while massively driving up the cost of heating and cooling your home.
So to gun owners out there who say, well, a Biden administration means they're going to come for my guns.
Bingo. You're right if you have an assault weapon.
Joe Biden would flood the courts with liberal activists who would trample over our Constitution.
Joe Biden believes that the government should make your health care choices, and he would take away your private health insurance options.
Sleepy Joe Biden weaponized the intelligence community against private citizens over politics. I felt it. You've seen it. The fact that they could do this to people for supporting a candidate for office is unfathomable in this great country. This is what takes place in third world dictatorships. Joe Biden cannot be given the privilege to get back to the White House.
It was on this day, 1987, after allegations of plagiarism, that Joe Biden told the Washington Press Corps he was ending his very first presidential bid and turning his focus back to the Senate.
Joe Biden sides with the Cuban communist regime and not with the Cuban people.
Joe Biden is a serial plagiarist with no authenticity.
It costs money. My plan costs a lot of money. It costs $740 billion over 10 years.
Would you go back to the Obama policy with regard to Cuba if you were reelected or you were elected president?
Yes, I would. In large part, I would go back.
14 million hardworking Americans left the workforce under the Obama-Biden administration, and nearly 800,000 fell into poverty.
Here is another reason why you should not vote for Jim Crow Joe. Why? Because he pushed a racist, bigoted crime bill decimating black families, giving them no chance. That's right.
Joe Biden unmasked General Flynn during the all-important time of the transition period from Election Day to Inauguration Day.
Biden helped negotiate the horrendous Iran deal, which gave the regime billions in cash while still allowing them to develop nuclear weapons.
You asked the third part of your question related to whether or not we don't need a wall.
Joe Biden promised to restore hundreds of millions of dollars in funding to the World Health Organization, despite the fact that the WHO lied to the world and covered up the spread of coronavirus, all to appease communist China.
Would there be any place for fossil fuels, including coal and fracking, in a Biden administration?
No. When asked whether or not we should defund the police, Joe Biden's response was yes, absolutely. As a U.S. Senator, Joe Biden called gays and lesbians an intelligence security risk.
I said we owe the man a direct answer. Mr. President, my suggestion is don't go.
Joe Biden couldn't support the killing of Osama bin Laden.
Joe Biden will not protect our cities from violent protesters.
Joe Biden opposed the military strike that killed Qasem Soleimani, a brutal terrorist responsible for the deaths and wounding of thousands of Americans. Joe Biden was the chief cheerleader on the Trans-Pacific Partnership trade deal that would have killed 448,000 American jobs and shrunk the economy.
Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids. We want to see China rise.
Joe Biden poses up to brutal dictators like Nicolas Maduro, who oppresses the Venezuelan people. Joe Biden abandoned our brave men and women in blue who keep us safe every day.
Joe Biden conspired with the intelligence community to launch the witch hunt and unmask General Flynn to destroy him.
I'm going to send to the United States Congress an immigration plan to provide a pathway for legalization for 11 million undocumented people.
Joe Biden believes children in America should be denied the right to a quality education because of their zip code.
Unchain Wall Street. We're going to put you all back in chains.
The black unemployment rate under the Obama-Biden administration averaged a horrific 12.8%.
Biden, bin Laden wrote, is totally unprepared for that post, which will lead the U.S. into a crisis.
Under Joe Biden, there would be a massive explosion of immigration, introducing more competition for our jobs that will worsen unemployment and depress wages for American workers.
Joe Biden and his administration decimated our great hardworking members of the military. They depleted the staff there, they depleted our resources, and it's only because of Donald Trump that our brave men and women who fight for us every day get a pay raise and have the tools they need to continue to be the greatest fighting force in the world.
This is my little sister, Valerie, and I'm Jill's husband. Oh, no, you switched on me. This is my wife, this is my sister. They switched on me.
Joe Biden lied about being arrested while trying to visit Nelson Mandela in South Africa.
I've spent more time, allegedly, with Xi Jinping than any world leader has before we left office. Barb and I had 25 hours of private dinners with him. And for real.
Joe Biden stands with Planned Parenthood, the largest abortion provider in the U.S., and does not protect the unborn.
Would you simply reinstate the Iran nuclear deal?
I would reinstate the Iran nuclear deal.
Only President Trump will defend our police. We know that Joe Biden wants to defund our police.
Arizona is very much in play in 2020, so we appreciate you taking some time to talk to the people of our state.
Oh, it's an important city. You guys are going through hell right now, aren't you? Well, yeah, you do,
Joe Biden has admitted that many Americans were left behind during his pathetic economic recovery.
How can Joe Biden lead our nation when he cannot even get through a softball interview, let alone take tough questions?
You know, the rapidly rising I don't know.
Joe Biden will side with the teachers' unions over the well-being of our children.
Joe Biden would order a 100-day halt on deportations of all illegal aliens, including violent MS-13 criminals.
I tried with Senator Grassley back in the 80s to freeze all government spending, including Social Security.
Under Joe Biden, the United States would have a higher corporate tax rate than communist China.
Anyway, my time's up. I'm sorry.
Joe Biden was the architect of the 1994 crime bill that locked up hundreds of thousands of black men.
I didn't realize he was on the board till after he'd been on the board.
Play the radio. Make sure the television, make sure you have the record player on at night.
While violent left-wing mobs set fires to police buildings, federal courthouses, and city halls, Joe Biden accused law enforcement of stoking the fires of division. Pathetic.
So if you make your money by clipping coupons on the street, you should be paying at the rate of tax that you are.
My name's Joe Biden. I'm a Democratic candidate for the United States Senate.
Joe Biden voted for the disastrous North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA, that killed 850,000 U.S. jobs.
Joe Biden is demonizing law enforcement, labeling them as the enemy.
We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by you know the thing.
Joe Biden will increase taxes on 82% of Americans.
Fellas, it's very simple. Because he's not Donald J. Trump.
Because he's not Donald Trump.
Because he's not Donald J. Trump.
Because he's not Donald J. Trump.
Because he is not Donald.
We're going to survive all the way through this whole thing.
Thanks, guys.